The relentless tide. The Morvaxian Empire had conquered 17 solar systems in 6 months. Their warships, massive obsidian structures that resembled floating mountains, moved through space with inexorable purpose, leaving only submission or destruction in their wake. Admiral Syrinx stood on the command deck of the Inevitable Dominance, the flagship of the Morvaxian Armada. His 4 eyes, evolved to track multiple targets during the ancient hunting days of his species, scanned the tactical display with practiced efficiency. The holographic projection showed their next target. Proxima Colony, humanity's furthest outpost. Pathetic, he muttered, his voice resonating with the distinctive harmonic undertones of his species. Another primitive civilization about to learn their place in the cosmos. His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Vex, approached with a measured stride. "Admiral, our scouts report minimal defenses. Their technology is rudimentary. They utilize nuclear propulsion and kinetic weapons." Syrinx's mandibles clicked with amusement. "The humans have spread themselves too thin. This colony barely deserves the deployment of a single battle group." "There is something unusual, Admiral," Vex continued. "Their communications suggest they have requested reinforcements from their homeworld, but our intelligence indicates no significant naval assets within response range." "It doesn't matter." Syrinx dismissed the concern with a wave of his clawed hand. "Begin the standard protocol. Demand surrender, demonstrate power, accept their submission." The Morvaxian communication officer transmitted the ultimatum to Proxima Colony. The response came almost immediately. "This is Governor Elena Morales of Proxima Colony. We reject your demand for surrender. Proxima Colony is sovereign human territory. Any hostile action will be met with force." Syrinx's compound eyes narrowed. Defiance was rare in the face of Morvaxian might. Most species understood the futility of resistance after witnessing the fate of the Tresians and the Golteri Confederation. "Initiate demonstration protocol," he ordered. The Inevitable Dominance targeted one of Proxima's uninhabited moons, a brilliant beam of energy. The concentrated output of the ship's antimatter cascade reactor lanced through space. The moon's surface glowed white-hot before a significant portion simply vaporized, leaving a crater visible from the colony's surface. "Reissue surrender demand," Syrinx commanded. The response from Proxima Colony was different this time. Not a transmission but action. A dozen small vessels launched from the colony's orbital platforms, accelerating toward the Morvaxian fleet. "They're attacking." Vex couldn't hide his surprise. With those, the human ships were dwarfed by even the smallest Morvaxian vessels. Their design appeared functional but unsophisticated. Metal hulls with visible weapon mounts and engine nacelles. "Brave but foolish," Syrinx observed. "Deploy interceptors. Make it quick." The battle, if it could be called that, lasted less than 15 minutes. The human vessels fought with unexpected ferocity, maneuvering with remarkable agility, but their weapons barely scratched the Morvaxian shields. One by one, they were destroyed, their debris scattered across Proxima's orbit. "Transmit visual feed to the colony," Syrinx ordered. "They need to understand the consequences of defiance." As the last human ship detonated in a brief flash of light and expanding gas, Syrinx felt the familiar satisfaction of inevitable victory. The Morvaxians had never been defeated. Their technological superiority was absolute. Their tactical doctrine, perfected over centuries of expansion, was flawless. "Admiral," Vex interrupted his thoughts, "we're detecting unusual readings from the human colony." "Explain." "Energy signatures, inconsistent with their technological level. And there's something else, a transmission. Directed not at us, but toward their home system." Syrinx examined the intercepted signal. It consisted of just 3 words: "Kraken Protocol authorized." Meaningless human terminology, he decided. "Prepare the invasion force. We'll have this colony under control by the next cycle." The Morvaxian landing craft descended through Proxima's atmosphere, their hulls glowing from atmospheric friction. Below the human settlement, a collection of domed structures and industrial facilities, prepared for the inevitable assault. What the Morvaxians didn't expect was the level of resistance they would face. The humans had fortified their position with surprising effectiveness. Automated defense turrets tracked and engaged the landing craft with remarkable accuracy. Several Morvaxian transports were critically damaged before reaching the surface. These humans are more resourceful than anticipated, Vex noted as casualty reports from the ground forces began to accumulate. Syrinx remained unmoved. It changes nothing. Increase orbital bombardment of their defensive positions. The Morvaxian fleet unleashed a barrage of energy weapons, systematically targeting the colony's defensive infrastructure. The humans responded with ground-to-space missiles. Primitive, but numerous. Most were intercepted, but a few managed to impact the smaller Morvaxian vessels, causing minor damage. For 3 days, the battle for Proxima Colony continued. The humans employed guerrilla tactics, ambushing Morvaxian ground forces and retreating into underground facilities. They utilized the colony's industrial equipment as improvised weapons and reconfigured mining explosives into effective traps. They're fighting like cornered animals, Vex observed. All species do when faced with extinction, Syrinx replied. But the outcome remains inevitable. By the 7th day, the Morvaxians had secured almost 70% of the colony. Human casualties were high, and their remaining forces had retreated to the central administrative complex. Victory was at hand. That's when the Morvaxian long-range sensors detected something unexpected. A single ship approaching from the direction of the Sol system, moving at impossible speed. Analysis, Syrinx demanded. Unknown vessel configuration, the sensor officer reported. Size comparable to our medium cruisers. Energy signature, anomalous. It's approaching at FTL velocities we've never recorded from any species. Impossible, Syrinx dismissed. No propulsion system can achieve such speeds without tearing itself apart. The readings are confirmed, Admiral. The vessel will arrive within 2 hours. Syrinx considered the situation. A single ship, even an advanced one, posed no threat to his fleet. Continue the ground assault. We'll deal with this new arrival when it comes. Exactly 1 hour and 47 minutes later, the unknown vessel dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Proxima system. The Morvaxian sensors immediately focused on it, and for the first time in his military career, Admiral Syrinx felt something unusual, a flicker of uncertainty. The human ship was unlike anything in their intelligence records. Its hull was midnight black, absorbing rather than reflecting light, making its exact dimensions difficult to determine. Its shape was unconventional, not the utilitarian designs seen in the colony's defenders, but something sleeker, more predatory. Most concerning were the energy readings emanating from it, power levels that matched or exceeded those of the inevitable dominance. Receiving transmission from the human vessel, the communication officer announced. The main view screen activated, displaying a human female in a dark uniform adorned with minimal insignia. Her expression was calm, almost detached. This is Captain Isabella Chen of the Earth Defense Force vessel Retribution. You are engaged in hostile actions against a sovereign human colony. You will cease all military operations immediately and withdraw from this system, or you will be destroyed. The bridge of the inevitable dominance fell silent. Such boldness from a technologically inferior species was unprecedented. Syrinx recovered quickly. This is Admiral Syrinx of the Morvaxian Empire. Your colony has already fallen. One ship, regardless of its capabilities, cannot stand against an armada. Surrender your vessel or share their fate. Captain Chen's expression didn't change. You misunderstand, Admiral. This is not a negotiation. You have 60 seconds to begin withdrawal. The transmission ended. Arrogance, Syrinx snarled. Target that vessel with all available weapons. Let's demonstrate the consequence of such foolishness. The Morvaxian fleet turned its attention to the human ship. 20 warships locked their weapon systems on the Retribution. They're not moving, Admiral, Vex noted. No evasive maneuvers. Fire. The combined firepower of the Morvaxian fleet, enough energy to shatter a small moon, converged on the solitary human vessel. And that's when everything changed. Desperate measures. 3 weeks earlier, in the underground facilities beneath Luna Base, Earth's military leadership gathered in a secure conference room. The atmosphere was tense, filled with the weight of impending decisions that would shape humanity's future. Admiral Helena Frost, commander of Earth Defense Force, stood before the assembled officers and civilian authorities. Her silver hair was pulled back in a severe bun, her expression grave as she activated the holographic display at the center of the table. The Morvaxian advance continues unchecked, she began without preamble. 17 systems have fallen. Their technological superiority is significant, their tactics ruthless. Intelligence suggests Proxima Colony will be their next target. Defense Secretary Raman leaned forward. Evacuation options. Impossible in the time frame we have, Frost replied. We can reinforce with conventional forces, but based on engagement data from other species, it would merely delay the inevitable. General Santos, head of EDF Ground Forces, shook his head. We can't just abandon our people. We won't, Frost assured him, which is why I've called this meeting. It's time to authorize the Kraken Protocol. The room fell silent. For most present, the term was unfamiliar, a classified designation beyond their security clearance. President Chen, attending via secure holographic link, narrowed her eyes. Admiral, even I have only been briefed on Kraken conceptually. You're suggesting full deployment. Yes, Madam President. The situation demands it. Frost gestured, and the holographic display changed to show a massive underground facility built into an asteroid in the outer solar system. For the past 15 years, Project Kraken has been our insurance policy against existential threats, a technological development program operating outside conventional channels, utilizing theoretical physics applications that many considered impossible. The display shifted again, showing a vessel unlike any in Earth's known fleet, sleek, predatory, its hull composed of a material that seemed to absorb light. The EDF Retribution, our first and only Kraken-class battleship. It incorporates technologies reverse-engineered from the Arcturus anomaly discovery, combined with theoretical applications developed by the Quantum Warfare Division. It's operational, President Chen asked. As of 6 months ago, Frost confirmed. We've conducted limited tests in the Kuiper Belt, away from observation. Its capabilities exceed our most optimistic projections. The hologram displayed performance metrics that seemed impossible. Weapon systems capable of manipulating gravitational fields, a propulsion system that bent space-time rather than pushing against it, defensive systems that operated on quantum principles rather than conventional energy barriers. This vessel represents a paradigm shift, Frost continued, but it's untested in actual combat. Deploying it reveals our most advanced technology to an enemy who, until now, believes us technologically primitive. General Santos studied the specifications with a mixture of awe and skepticism. One ship against their armada, even with these capabilities. The Retribution isn't just advanced, Frost interrupted. It's revolutionary. Its AI tactical systems can process combat scenarios at speeds no organic mind can match. Its weapons target vulnerabilities we can't even perceive. And its defensive systems, she paused, operate on principles that redefine what we consider possible. President Chen's holographic image stood. The stakes are clear. If Proxima falls easily, Earth is next. What does Captain Chen need from us? Isabella Chen, the president's daughter and the officer selected to command the Retribution, had been chosen not through nepotism, but because she had scored highest in the psychological profiles for adapting to the ship's unprecedented systems. Authorization, Admiral Frost replied. The Kraken Protocol requires Presidential and Security Council approval. President Chen nodded gravely. You have it. God help us all. The vote was unanimous. Within hours, The Retribution emerged from its hidden dock and began its journey toward Proxima Colony, accelerating to velocities no human vessel had ever achieved. On the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Isabella Chen sat in the command chair, her mind partially integrated with the ship's systems through a neural interface. The bridge crew, carefully selected and trained in secret, monitored systems that most of humanity's scientists would consider theoretical. FTL transition complete, announced Lieutenant Commander Rice, the navigation officer. We've arrived at the Proxima system. Chen's neural link provided her with immediate situational awareness. The Morvaxian fleet in orbit, the ground invasion in progress, the desperate resistance from the colonists. Status of the Morvaxian forces, she inquired. 17 capital ships, 33 support vessels, replied Lieutenant Park at Tactical. Their ground forces have secured approximately 70% of the colony. Remaining defenders are concentrated in the central administrative complex. Chen nodded. Open a channel. The confrontation with Admiral Serix went exactly as she had anticipated. The Morvaxians, unchallenged for so long, couldn't conceive of a serious threat from a seemingly inferior species. As the communication ended and the Morvaxian weapons locked onto the Retribution, Chen remained calm. Defensive systems active, she asked. Yes, Captain, confirmed Commander Sato, her executive officer. Quantum field generators at full capacity. Weapons status. Graviton lance charged. Spatial distortion arrays ready. Chen nodded. Hold position. Let them fire first. The Morvaxian barrage, a devastating concentration of antimatter beams and plasma torpedoes, streaked toward the Retribution. The bridge crew watched with tense anticipation as certain death approached their vessel. The impact never came. Around the Retribution, space itself seemed to warp. The energy weapons bent around the ship's hull, their trajectories altered by invisible forces, while the torpedoes simply disappeared, as if consumed by microscopic black holes that winked in and out of existence. On the bridge of the inevitable dominance, Admiral Serix stared in disbelief at his tactical display. Report, he demanded. All weapons, ineffective, Vex responded, his voice tinged with confusion. Their defensive system isn't absorbing or deflecting our attacks. It's altering the fundamental properties of space around their vessel. Before Serix could respond, the Retribution moved. Not with the ponderous acceleration of conventional engines, but with an instantaneous change in velocity that defied the laws of physics as the Morvaxians understood them. Target their lead destroyer, Chen ordered. Graviton lance, minimal power. Let's demonstrate. A beam of distorted space, invisible except for the way it bent light around it, lanced from the Retribution toward a Morvaxian destroyer. Where it touched the alien vessel, matter simply collapsed in on itself, crushed by artificially generated gravitational forces thousands of times stronger than a neutron star. The destroyer imploded, its matter compressed to a singularity that evaporated in a burst of Hawking radiation. Silence fell over the Morvaxian command network. What was that? Vex whispered. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Serix had no immediate tactical response. The humans had not just surprised them. They had revealed capabilities that shouldn't be possible. All vessels, evasive maneuvers, he ordered. Launch all fighter squadrons. Surround and overwhelm that ship. The Morvaxian fleet dispersed, attempting to encircle the Retribution while launching hundreds of smaller attack craft. It was a standard Morvaxian tactic, one that had overwhelmed countless enemy vessels across 17 conquered systems. But the Retribution wasn't a standard vessel. They're deploying fighter swarms, reported Lieutenant Park, attempting to establish a multi-vector attack pattern. Chen nodded. Activate point defense grid. Spatial distortion arrays to defensive configuration. Around the human battleship, space rippled as dozens of microscopic wormholes opened. The Morvaxian fighters, approaching from all directions, suddenly found themselves emerging from these spatial distortions in completely different locations, some directly in the path of their fellow fighters, others facing the wrong direction. some even appearing inside the defensive perimeter of Morvaxian capital ships. Chaos engulfed the Morvaxian formation as fighters collided or accidentally fired upon their own capital ships. "What's happening?" Serix demanded as he watched his carefully coordinated attack disintegrate into confusion. "They're manipulating space," the science officer replied in disbelief, "creating localized wormholes that redirect our fighters." Chen watched the disorder spreading through the enemy fleet with analytical detachment. "Target their communications array," she ordered. "Let's isolate their command structure." The Retribution fired its secondary weapons, coherent beams of exotic particles that existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously. When they struck the Morvaxian communication systems, the delicate equipment experienced every possible quantum state of damage at once, rendering repairs virtually impossible. With their coordinated communications severed, the Morvaxian fleet's responses became increasingly disjointed. Individual captains attempted to engage the Retribution, only to find their weapons ineffective and their tactical maneuvers countered before they were even executed. "They're adapting their attack patterns," Chen noted as she observed the tactical display. "Admirable, but insufficient." The Retribution moved again, this time positioning itself directly above Proxima Colony's main settlement. "Ground forces status?" Chen inquired. "The Morvaxians have halted their advance," Captain, reported Commander Sato. "They appear to be awaiting new orders from their fleet." Chen nodded. "Open a colony-wide channel. Let our people know help has arrived." Throughout the beleaguered colony, communication systems activated with a message from the Retribution. "Proxima Colony, this is Captain Chen of the EDF Retribution. Hold your positions. Reinforcements are incoming." Chen turned to her tactical officer. "Deploy the Strike teams." As the pods streaked toward the colony, Admiral Serix realized that the battle had fundamentally changed. The humans hadn't just brought an advanced ship, they had revealed technological capabilities that outstripped anything in the known galaxy. For the first time in Morvaxian history, the inevitable victory had become anything but inevitable. The turning point. The Strike commandos hit Proxima's atmosphere like falling stars, their drop pods surrounded by the distinctive distortion effect of localized spatial manipulation. Morvaxian ground forces, already confused by the sudden halt in their advance, tracked the incoming objects with growing concern. "Incoming human reinforcements," reported the Morvaxian ground commander, requesting orbital support to intercept. But Admiral Serix was preoccupied with the more immediate threat of the Retribution. "Denied. Deal with them using your ground assets. All orbital weapons remain focused on the human vessel." The Strike commandos deployed across key strategic locations in the colony. Each soldier wore an exoskeleton that seemed to shimmer slightly, as though not entirely present in normal space. Their weapons, compact but mysterious in design, hummed with the same energy signature as the Retribution's main systems. Commander Maya Rodriguez, leader of the Strike team, established a defensive perimeter around the colony's administrative center, where the remaining colonists had taken refuge. "This is Strike Actual to all teams," she broadcast through their secure quantum-entangled communication system. "Priority 1 is civilian protection. Engage and neutralize all Morvaxian forces within the settlement perimeter." The effect was immediate and devastating. The Strike commandos moved with impossible speed, appearing to teleport short distances as their exoskeletons manipulated local spacetime. Morvaxian energy weapons fired at them only to have their beams curve harmlessly away or pass through empty space, where a commando had been microseconds earlier. In orbit, the battle continued to unfold with equally one-sided results. The Morvaxian fleet had regrouped, adapting their tactics to focus fire from multiple vectors simultaneously, hoping to overwhelm the Retribution's defensive systems. "Multiple weapons locks detected," reported Lieutenant Park. "They're coordinating through backup communication channels." Captain Chen nodded. "Impressive adaptability. Execute Maneuver Hydra." The Retribution suddenly split into 5 identical vessels. perfect holographic duplicates enhanced by localized spatial distortions that gave them seemingly physical presence. The Morvaxian targeting systems, unable to distinguish the real ship from the duplicates, divided their fire ineffectively. "Remarkable," muttered Vex as he watched the display. "This goes beyond advanced technology. It's like they're operating with a completely different understanding of physical laws." Serix's mandibles clicked in frustration. After centuries of Morvaxian dominance, based on their superior understanding of antimatter technology and plasma physics, they faced an enemy that manipulated the fabric of reality itself. "Divert power from all non-essential systems to the main cannon," he ordered. "Target the area between those ships. If we can't determine which is real, we'll destroy them all." The inevitable dominance began to glow as unprecedented energy levels built up in its main weapon system. At these power levels, the antimatter cascade reaction would produce an explosion capable of vaporizing a small moon. On the Retribution, sensors detected the power buildup. "Captain, they're charging their main weapon system," Park reported. "Energy levels exceeding anything in our database." Chen processed this through her neural link with the ship. Analysis of probable effect. "At those energy levels, it could potentially overload our quantum field generators if we take a direct hit," responded Commander Sato. "Even with our defenses, that much antimatter annihilation in close proximity would be problematic." Chen nodded. "Then we don't give them the chance to fire. Target their main power conduits. Graviton Lance, precision strike." The Retribution's main weapon activated, but instead of the overwhelming force demonstrated earlier, it emitted a pencil-thin beam that struck the inevitable dominance with surgical precision. The gravitational distortion penetrated the Morvaxian shields as if they weren't there, targeting the exact junction where the battleship's antimatter reactor connected to its main cannon. The effect was catastrophic but controlled. Secondary explosions rippled through the weapon systems of the Morvaxian flagship, rendering its main cannon useless without destroying the entire vessel. "Direct hit," Park confirmed. "Their main weapon system is offline, detecting multiple power failures throughout their command ship." On the bridge of the inevitable dominance, emergency lighting activated as primary systems failed. Warning alarms blared as containment fields around the antimatter storage fluctuated. "Damage report," Serix demanded. "Main cannon destroyed." An officer reported. "Power distribution network compromised. Antimatter containment at 87% and stabilizing. They targeted our systems with impossible precision." Vex approached his commander. "Admiral, we need to reconsider our approach. This enemy has capabilities we've never encountered." "Perhaps." "No retreat," Serix interrupted, his voice hardening. "The Morvaxian Empire does not retreat. Reconfigure all remaining ships to focus on their ground forces. If we can't destroy their ship, we'll make the colony untenable for human habitation." On the surface of Proxima, the tide had already turned. The Sturaiki commandos had secured 40% of the colony territory in under an hour, their advanced technology making them nearly invulnerable to conventional Morvaxian weapons. Commander Rodriguez coordinated with colonial defense forces, integrating their conventional tactics with the Sturaiki team's overwhelming technological advantage. The Morvaxians found themselves being systematically pushed back from the settlement, their numerical advantage rendered meaningless. Then the situation changed again. Morvaxian orbital vessels repositioned themselves and began indiscriminate bombardment of the colony surface, not targeting military assets but civilian infrastructure. Habitat domes shattered under the assault, environmental systems failed, and agricultural facilities burned. "They're targeting civilians," Rodriguez reported to the Retribution, requesting immediate intervention. Captain Chen didn't hesitate. "All power to propulsion and defensive systems. Move us between the Morvaxian fleet and the colony." The Retribution accelerated with impossible speed, positioning itself as a shield above the human settlement. Its quantum field expanded, creating a protective bubble that extended to cover the entire colony. Morvaxian energy weapons and torpedoes dissipated harmlessly against this barrier. Chen studied the tactical display, her expression hardening. This ends now. Prepare the dimensional inverter. Commander Sato looked up sharply. Captain, that system has never been tested in combat conditions. The theoretical models suggest unpredictable effects at this scale. We have no choice, Chen replied. They've demonstrated they'll target civilians rather than accept defeat. That cannot stand. The Retribution's most classified weapons system began to power up. A device that temporarily inverted the relationship between gravity and electromagnetism within a targeted volume of space. The physics behind it were beyond comprehension to all but a handful of Earth's theoretical physicists. Target locked on the Morvaxian support fleet, Park confirmed. Dimensional inverter at full charge. Fire, Chen ordered. A sphere of distorted space, appearing as a perfect darkness that reflected no light, expanded from the Retribution toward the clustered Morvaxian support ships. As it engulfed them, the laws of physics inside the sphere inverted. Matter that relied on electromagnetic forces to maintain its structure suddenly found those forces repulsive rather than attractive. Gravitational forces, normally attractive at macro scales, became violently repulsive. The result was unlike any weapon effect ever witnessed in galactic warfare. 12 Morvaxian vessels caught in the field didn't explode or disintegrate. They simply came apart at the atomic level, their matter dispersing in patterns that defied conventional understanding of how objects should break. The effect lasted only seconds, but when it dissipated, nothing remained of the targeted ships except an expanding cloud of elemental particles. On the bridge of the inevitable dominance, absolute silence fell. The tactical display showed a third of their fleet simply gone. Not destroyed in any recognizable sense, but unmade. For the first time in recorded history, a Morvaxian admiral faced not just the possibility, but the probability of defeat. All remaining vessels, Syrinx ordered, his voice subdued, withdraw to defensive formation Delta. Recall all ground forces immediately. Vex stared at his commander in shock. Admiral, withdrawal is unprecedented. The High Command will. The High Command isn't here, Syrinx interrupted. They haven't seen what that ship can do. If we don't adapt, there won't be a fleet to report back. Throughout the Proxima system, Morvaxian forces began a tactical retreat. Ground troops abandoned their positions, rushing to evacuation points where transport ships waited. The remaining capital ships moved to protective positions around the damaged inevitable dominance. Captain Chen observed this development with cautious optimism. They're withdrawing, she noted. Should we pursue? Asked Lieutenant Park. Chen considered the option. The Retribution had the capability to eliminate the entire Morvaxian fleet, but that wasn't the mission. No, she decided. Our primary objective was to save Proxima Colony. That's accomplished. Let them go, and let them take the message back to their empire. As the Morvaxian fleet prepared to depart the system, Admiral Syrinx sent one final transmission to the Retribution. This is not over, human. You have surprised us today. But the Morvaxian Empire spans hundreds of systems. We will analyze your technology, adapt our own, and return with a force that even your remarkable ship cannot withstand. Captain Chen's response was measured. You misunderstand the situation, Admiral. The Retribution isn't our greatest achievement. It's merely our first step. By the time you return, we'll have an entire fleet waiting. The era of Morvaxian expansion ends today. The transmission ended, leaving Admiral Syrinx with an unfamiliar emotion. Doubt about the future of his empire. On Proxima Colony, the Strike teams had secured the settlement. Medical teams from the Retribution deployed to assist the injured colonists, bringing with them medical technology as advanced as the ship's weapon systems. Injuries that would have been fatal with conventional treatment were healed in minutes. Commander Rodriguez met with the colony's governor in the damaged administrative center. We thought we were doomed, Governor Morales admitted. When they destroyed our defense fleet, We expected to become just another conquered world. Rodriguez smiled. Humanity has a long history of being underestimated. It's something of a specialty of ours. As night fell on Proxima Colony, the settlers emerged from shelters to see the Retribution hovering protectively in the sky above them, a guardian angel of human ingenuity and determination. The message was clear. Humanity would not go quietly into the dark night of galactic conquest. They had just announced their presence to the wider galaxy, not as victims, but as equals, perhaps even as something to be feared. Counterstrike. 3 days after the Battle of Proxima, the Morvaxian retreat continued. Admiral Syrinx had ordered his damaged fleet to regroup at Outpost 4-Axis, a Morvaxian military installation in a neighboring star system. The journey, normally a matter of hours with Morvaxian FTL technology, had stretched to days as damaged ships limped along at reduced speeds. On the bridge of the inevitable dominance, Syrinx reviewed damage reports with growing concern. 6 capital ships lost, 12 support vessels destroyed by the human weapon they couldn't even understand, and nearly 40% of their ground forces abandoned during the hasty evacuation. Admiral Vex approached, his posture more subdued than usual. The fleet commanders are assembled in the strategic chamber. They await your assessment. Syrinx rose from his command chair, feeling the weight of defeat for the first time in his career. Tell them I'll be there shortly. The strategic chamber was designed to inspire confidence, a circular room with walls displaying the conquered territories of the Morvaxian Empire, the floor emblazoned with the imperial insignia. Today, it felt hollow as Syrinx faced his subordinate commanders. The humans possess technology beyond our current understanding, he began without preamble. Their defenses negate our weapons. Their propulsion systems operate on principles we cannot yet explain. And their offensive capabilities, he paused, mandibles clicking in agitation, can unmake matter itself. Commander Nix, a decorated veteran of the Trescian campaign, leaned forward. 1 ship, Admiral. They have 1 ship with these capabilities. That we know of, Syrinx corrected. Their captain claimed this vessel is merely their first. Intelligence suggests their homeworld may have more in development. Impossible, another commander objected. Our reconnaissance of their systems indicated primitive technology. Nuclear propulsion, chemical weapons, rudimentary energy shields. Syrinx activated the holographic display, showing footage of the Retribution splitting into multiple images, the Graviton Lance precision strike, and finally, the dimensional inverter's effect on their support fleet. Does this look primitive to you? He challenged. They deceived us, allowed us to believe they were technologically inferior while developing capabilities that surpass our own. Silence fell over the assembled commanders as they processed the implications. What are your orders, Admiral? Vex finally asked. Syrinx straightened. We will return to the homeworld immediately. The High Command must be informed. Our entire strategic approach to galactic conquest must be reconsidered. And the human colony? Commander Nix pressed. We leave it for now, Syrinx decided. But we will return, with a fleet designed specifically to counter their technology. As the Morvaxian commanders dispersed, Syrinx remained in the strategic chamber, staring at the frozen image of the Retribution. For the first time in his life, he felt something the Morvaxians had never needed to experience: fear of an enemy. On Proxima Colony, the reconstruction efforts were underway. The Retribution remained in orbit.